Hello everyone, this is Hao. Welcome to the second episode of the Youth Avenue podcast. On the quest to find his identity with the Cambodian root, Raphael Pech seeks to use photography to find lost ties of his family that he lost in Khmer Rouge. Born and raised in French, currently based in Cambodia, this colorblind photographer seeks to use photography to find the beauty of an ordinary people on the street. Special created this episode, and to celebrate colorblindness, the whole episode will be in black and white. Without further ado, please welcome Raphael Pech to the podcast.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Raphael, for inviting me. It's an honor.
How's life been? And then big congrats on your successful photography project of the Little Street series with Red on the Street. Big congrats on that. Would you mind tell us more about how did you come up with the idea of the Little Drop series and what's the meaning behind the Little Drop series that you did with Greg?
So, as you know, I started photography as a street photographer for years, and we have a kind of obsession for street people. I think that they are beautiful, they are gorgeous, but most of the time they are completely invisible to people. So, in my photographic journey in Cambodia, I finally discovered a studio job. And I was thinking something like, how can I mix the beautiful lighting that we can have in the studio and the people from the street who are gorgeous? And I ended with this special idea to set up a studio on the riverside and trying to bring them inside. Do you know a photographer named Irving Penn?
Irving Penn? No, I did not.
It's a famous American photographer, and he was a fashion photographer.
Wow.
Before that, he was a painter. So then he became a fashion photographer because at that time it was the most convenient way to get money from photography.
Yeah.
But he also did something that many people don't know. It's a series about ethnographic costumes all over the world. So he went in Africa, in Asia, doing some black and white gorgeous pictures of people from the street. So when I was studying his work, I was thinking, why not doing the same thing in Phnom Penh? And I met Greg one year. And we were talking about Irving Penn and my ideas of shooting people from the street in a studio setting. And we immediately were on the same page. So it was just obvious that we need to do that, and especially together. So for me, Greg is one of the most amazing street photographers in Cambodia. He's documenting Cambodian streets since years, and I think his pictures are completely poetic. There's a lot of beauty in his job.
Yeah.
So, I'm still learning photographic technical things. So I was thinking that if I invite him to that project, I will learn a lot, and that's what happened. So we managed to find a place on the riverside. We put our studio there. And then I had some friends coming with me, and they were in charge of finding people in the street. Anyone, any kind of people, from the youngest to the oldest people. All those people in the riverside, we are all used to them, but they are almost invisible for many people also.
Whoa.
We see them like every day. And finally we never stop to. So the idea was to put them under the light and to offer them a professional shooting. It's a tribute to Irving Penn works also. So that was the idea, showing the world that in Cambodia we have beautiful and gorgeous people everywhere, even in the street for small things like selling food or anything. But so this series was a blast, and I understood that I will continue that kind of setting. I have a portable studio, I can go anywhere and offer that to the people. So I want to offer light to anyone, as much as I can.
Wow, that's a beautiful story you have there. I'm really finding really interesting how you mentioned the fact that the street people like the street workers, the street vendors, they are invisible in the sense that they are not wild, right? If I remember correctly, like how they don't. We walk past them, we walk through them, we would buy things from them, but we would never get a chance to put them under the lights and give them like a picture. So that's what you are trying to make, am I correct?
You are correct. So the idea was to document the riverside little jobs, because I know that in like 10 to 20 years, most of them will disappear.
Well, disappear as in.
Yes, that's the reality because we had exactly the same process in France.
Yeah.
So, you know, the regulations, hygiene things, all those things will make them disappear.
Wow.
And that's a very important part of the economy of Cambodia. We have maybe millions of people surviving in Cambodia because of those little jobs. And you know how the world is evolving, most of this kind of activity disappear everywhere in the world. So I was obsessed to document that. And I think I will be back there in 10 years and doing the same thing, and in 20 years. Maybe I will find the same person, or maybe there will be no one still working on the riverside. So let's see what will happen. I hope we still keep these activities because people need that to survive. So this is how the world is changing, and it's changing very fast.
Wow. I remember a bit of background with me and Raphael. I remember we met back in around April, and we were talking about how we want to start different projects on the Abstract project, just to list a few, the Abstract project, the Khmer project, the Little Job Series project, and many other projects. And I remember you talking about how photography has been a purpose of you bridging your identity for your Cambodian roots, and that you lost ties in the Khmer Rouge. Talk about how does photography link your identity with your Cambodian roots through street photography in Cambodia.
Thank you. So my dad came in France in the 70s, right before the Khmer Rouge. He was studying law in Paris, and then the war started. And all my family has been slaughtered at that time, very early during the Khmer Rouge time. So my dad has only one obsession at that time. It was to come back to Cambodia, and to be able to show us this country and to be linked to our roots. So my mother, she's French, but my dad died. I was only 9, so I've been completely aware of Cambodia, my Cambodian roots for years. I didn't know the Cambodian diaspora in France. So everything for me was about my Cambodian identity. But I think, like many Cambodians from France, was a bit aside. I think for us, most of us, we were just obsessed to become French.
Yeah, it's like more romantic language, it's cool, it's this and that.
So I was surrounded by French and people from all over the world, and my Cambodian identity has always been something that I was looking for a way to be involved and to be connected. So I came in Cambodia in 2001 with only 2 pictures and 2 letters from my dad.
2 pictures and 2 letters.
So one picture was my grandparents, Pech Samba, and my grandfather, his name was Manmanda Pech. So, and one picture of my aunt, and just one letter with a few information that François Pancho translated for me in Paris. So I came in Cambodia with my friends since kindergarten, so very old friends, and they were supportive to help me to find my family. I came back here, went all around Cambodia with my pictures and letters, and finally I found them.
Oh, yes. So you found your aunt,
my grandmother, many cousins and uncles, all the survivors. So they were living in Cambodia. They knew that I was existing, but we lost all the connections when my father died, so it was a big surprise for them and a big one for me. You can imagine that. So I've been blessed because not so many people who came back in Cambodia were able to find their relatives. So I've been very lucky. And since that day, I have only one idea, is to become a bit more Cambodian. When you are French Cambodian, you are in France, you are considered like a French with roots from outside. When you come back here, you have the same feeling. So everything is about being able to live a good life, being French and Cambodian. This double identity can be heavy, but since I started photography, I feel way better.
Wow.
So it helped me a lot to connect with Cambodian people, to show respect to the Cambodian culture, and yeah, that's, I think art can save from everything. So
Wow. Remind me, that was back when you were what age?
when I came here the first time, I was 21.
21.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so you came here at 21 with 4 pictures to find your families.
2 pictures, 2 letters, and nothing else.
To find your family. Wow. And how did you find friends to connect with you on on the photos? And like, do you go for from what I see is that they would go to television and they would advertise on, not advertise, put it up on like the show, trying put it on the TV and put it on like different platforms, trying to reach out and connect to the whole relatives and everything. So how does your process work? Like, is it like more less of that, or more just like mouth to mouth, talking?
Interesting question, because in 2001, we were not used to have social media. Things like that. So it was a very old style way of doing things. It was connecting with people, and asking them, do you know those people? Can you help me for that? So I was in Cape at that time.
Oh, you were in Cape.
And because I went to Cambodia, on the letters from my dad, there was something about Cambodia. So I was thinking maybe they are around that place. So I went there. I tried Cambodia everywhere with my letters and pictures, going to the market, going to the street. Do you know those people? But you need to know something. Most of the people, they don't remember their image before the Khmer Rouge. So even my grandmother, when she saw her, she wasn't able to recognize herself. Same for my aunt. So that was very interesting at that time. So how I found them, it's a very funny story. I was in Cape, and at that time I decided with my friend to establish a camp on Cotton side. So, but just before that, I was staying in a guest house, and there was a French who were living in Cambodia since maybe 1 or 2 years. And I was explaining him my quest and that I was looking for my family, and he said, oh, I know many people in Cambodia, so maybe if you give me the pictures and the letters during your time on Cotton side, maybe I can try to find them.
Oh, so it's on an island? You met?
So I met him in Cape.
Okay.
But the day after, I was supposed to stay on the island for maybe 1 or 2 weeks with my friend.
Okay.
So at that time, there was no guest house, no touristic facilities, only people living on the island.
So Cotton side.
Cotton side.
Cotton side. The Rabbit Island.
Exactly, Rabbit Island. So I went there. My friend and I were fishing and living our life on the island. Very nice experience. But during that time, my friend Daniel went to Cambodia and he met someone who can't speak French. This woman died since that time, but she was an amazing person in charge of education in Cambodia. And when she saw the pictures, she said to him, I know those people. Yeah. So he went to see them, and when he met my aunt, he showed the picture and she didn't recognize herself. But she said, but she recognized her mother. So it was clear that for me, at that time, so I was on my island, I know nothing about that, but my friend wants to be sure that those people were the right person. We never know. So my aunt went somewhere in the house, she was digging for something in a box and she got a picture from my sister at that time. So she gave that picture to my friend Daniel. Daniel came back on the island and he said to me, I found your family. I was thinking maybe that's not true.
That's so easy. I found everything. Wow.
And I was looking for them since like 2 months already, so I was almost thinking that it will be impossible to find them. So I said, don't play with me, don't do things like that. And then you remember, he showed me the picture of my sister. And then I understood that he really found them. So he said, come with me in the boat. I arrived in Cape, and there was like 150 person waiting for me. So it was just, my life completely changed at that point. It was just a very big emotion, something very powerful. And then I met him, and since that day I feel a bit more Cambodian.
Wow, and then that was so it's still in 2001.
2001.
Wow.
Can you imagine 100 moto driving from Cape to Cambodia? I arrived to that place and my grandmother was sitting in the middle of the room, and when she saw me, she saw her son. So
wow. So it's like it's I feel like it's a miracle. Is it? How is it? Would you say it's a miracle?
yes,
It's almost like a miracle that it's like the fact that everyone is like, hey, I met your family, and then it's like, here, and now your family is right there, and then wow, it's just things like good things happen like one after the other for you. It seems like.
I've been very lucky, to tell you the truth, because I know since that day that many people have the same quest from all over the world.
Yeah.
Not so many people are able to find a big and healthy and kind family like I did. So I'm the luckiest guy in Cambodia almost.
I do agree. It's and how did you see photography being a role in this space then? Like how did you see photography being like a bridge between your identity and yourself right now? Like, what's the role of photography then? Because you mentioned that through photography and through those photos that you show to other people, it's been giving you a lot of good things, a lot of miracle that's happening. And what makes you think that photography has been, the key to finding all your miracle?
So photography, that's the beginning of everything for me and my story with Cambodia, because everything started with like 2 pictures. So it's about having someone, a portrait of someone, and this can save someone else like 20 years later. This is what happened to me. So I don't know who is the photographer who took the portrait of my aunt and grandparents at that time, but those 2 pictures had a kind of echo in time. It helped me to find them. So when I was here the first time, I wasn't alone, since my sister was still in France at that time. So I need to document that. So I started to document that when I found them. I took some picture, like at that time we used film, and I took like 1,000 pictures, I think, something like that, of my grandparents, my family, and I documented all that. I think sometimes being a photographer helps you to take a bit of distance. You step back, you observe. It's a question of visual and what you can see and what you will remember. The idea was to keep that as a very precious moment, and maybe one day, year after, if I have kids, it will be very interesting for them to know a bit more about that. So, no social media, nothing to share. Photography was something very personal. I never shared any picture on any platform. The first time I did that, it was in January.
January of this year?
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't I had some accounts, but it was just to see what people are doing with photography, but I never feel like I can share or someone can be interested in my work, things like that. So it was very confidential.
And how did you have the courage to put up the photos and everything, since you said you wanted to keep your life more confidential, more discreet? How did you find the confidence to put it up? Like, what makes you, what incidents or what makes you feel the courage to put up all the photos?
I think I'm a COVID photographer. Let me explain why. So when the COVID started, we all feel that life will be different and it will probably last a very long time. I'm 42 years old, and that was the first time that I had to change my habit and to think that the world will be more complex right now. So I was thinking that to feel good during that time, we need an artistic way of expressing our thoughts and things like that. So street photography for me, starting in January to February, was a way for me to be focused on something good. I was observing the work of people like on his amazing street photography work, and I'm very big fan, to tell you the truth. And he wrote something one day on his profile, and it was very inspiring to me. He was saying that photography was not just only technical things. It was more than having something to show the world and having a camera in your pocket all the time. And I'm the kind of guy who goes everywhere with a camera since like 20 years. I always have a camera. I can't go anywhere, even if I have to go to buy some bread outside, I go out with my camera in my pocket. So I'm always ready to capture something. And when I saw that, maybe because many people they don't want to, they are focused on technique. I think most of photographers have an obsession for technique, and sometimes they completely forget that what is the most important is not the technique, but it's what is happening in front of you. And I've been lucky enough in my life to travel a lot, and I've seen a lot of amazing things. So I document my life. I did that for my kids. And yeah, sorry, I forgot the beginning of the question.
Also the question was, how did you use photography to enrich the identity, and how to have the courage to put up the photos?
Okay, so when I started to share, I've been very surprised because the feedback was quite good, very fast. So I continue to have a kind of routine, like every day I know that it was time to walk for 1 hour, taking pictures in the street and sharing that. So I did that for a few months. But then something very special happened. So I met someone, his name is Derek. And then I met him and he offered me the opportunity to work in a studio for the first time. So it was clearly a revelation to me. So it was just so cool to have lights and to control. So I learned a lot about technique, and it was a brand new world in photography for me.
Yeah.
But I was still obsessed with the street people, you know. I grew up in the suburb of Paris. I spent my life in streets. I have a very strong urban culture, from music to art and whatever which is related to street. So street is what I am. I'm a guy from the street. And when I discovered the studio work, what I said before with the Little Job series, I was thinking how I can reach those two. So this is where I am now. I'm still working with lights, but now I want to bring those lights everywhere I can.
Wow, so you're trying to bring studio light outside to the street now.
Exactly.
Wow. And well, talking about Kasalatake, we have him for our first episode of the Venue podcast, and then I told him that for the second episode I'll have Raphael for him next guest. And there are some questions that he also would like to ask on my behalf. He would like to ask, one of the questions is, he would like to ask us, what is your ikigai, or what is your life purpose, what's your reasons for being? And then the second question is that Take also want to ask is, how did you come up with all these photography projects? Where did you get your inspiration? Let's say for the Little Job series, for the Apsara project, for the Burma series, and many other projects that are coming in the future. What's your routine, and how did you come up with all this aspiration for the project?
Excellent question, I guess.
Big love to talk.
So for me, I have one purpose in life. Only one. It's to be happy.
To be happy.
To be happy.
That's it.
That's it. And there is many ways of being happy. I think I am old enough now to know that there is not only way of being happy, there is different way of finding a way to be happy. But it's something you have to focus on. Many people forget that. You wake up in the morning, you have to think about that, like an intention. I want to be happy. And I noticed something since I'm getting a bit older. You can't be happy if the people around you are not happy. So my obsession is to help the people around me to be happy. First my family, my friend. And just to be happy, you need to have someone who support you, who can listen to you, who can help you to improve your daily life.
Yes.
So being happy, and right now my mission is to find a way to feel good with my Cambodian identity. And I feel way better since I started photography. I met so many amazing people. So yes, my ikigai, I think it's a very simple one. We forget that.
Yeah.
Many people just forget that. We do things to be happy. If you do something that not makes you happy, you should think about, should I continue that or not?
Wow. What is your definition of happy then? Like, okay, for some people they could define happy as being having a lot of money, having a house, having a bed to stay. Some people, but it's different between other people. What is your definition of happiness in your work?
Very good question. So I guess that for me, happiness is when you feel that people cares about you and when you can take care of other people. So it's very linked to, I think, family first. Of course, if you have a healthy relationship with your family, it will bring you joy and happiness for sure. And being happy is also being safe.
Being safe.
Yes, living in a place where you know that you will feel safe and you will be respected and that everything will be alright. It doesn't mean that life will be easy, but it means that all around me I will make choices that will help me to be happy. And if I'm happy, maybe I will help other people to become happy. My kids first, probably my wife.
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying that being happy is about being kind to other people, and then other people being kind to you in response, or is that it?
It can be that, but I think it's not related to be kind or not being happy. You can be a very bad person and being happy.
Yeah, true.
I guess that there is
That's true, yeah.
But for myself, it's not just being kind, it's being linked and connected to people. Being alone is very complex. Some people like to be very alone and they are happy like that. For me, it's being connected. As much as I can be connected to other people, I feel happy. I feel better. I feel good.
Wow, being connected as in like, would you want to talk about that for a bit? Like being connected as in?
Yeah, it can be like with art, with activities that you have around. It's being inside the community. Because I've been a side of the Cambodian community all my life almost. So for me, happiness right now is being back to my Cambodian roots directly.
So back to the question again. So talking about photography has been a big purpose of yours, because through photography you've been able to find your identity a bit safer, you say, in Cambodia. And how have you been finding the inspiration for photography, doing the street, living with the purpose, doing photography every day? How did you find the inspirations through that? How did you really? I find it really interesting how you able to wake up, shoot, find time to do it. How did you get that motivation?
Okay, so I'm really addicted to photography. And there's something very special the way I do that. I'm not addicted to the result. I'm addicted to the fact of pressing the shutter. That's very special, but I need to do that. That's something very important for me. Of course, if I have wonderful film in front of my camera, it's better, but I can do that with nothing. So there's something that is interesting in the way I consider photography. I never think about the final result. I do things maybe in the opposite way of many people. When they have an idea in mind, they will do everything to make it happen. Me, I just create a context for models or people to be photographed. So I just let them do what they have to do. I never give instruction to people, I never ask them to be like that or to... No, I'm not interested in that. I want to create a context where people can be photographed in a safe and respectful environment. So that's why every time I am shooting, my daughter shoots with me, because I think it's also a family affair. I want my daughter and my son to understand that their dad is respectful about the people around them.
Oh.
So for example, I live in Street 9 next to Sakako, and I'm about to set up my studio in the market.
In the market?
In the market. I don't really know how I can do that, but I will find a way. I'm still planning that. As I told you a few seconds before, I'm not interested about what will happen. I'm sure something will happen, and I will be here to capture that. So this is how I approach photography. It's just being ready to press the shutter, to create the condition for people to feel good and to be ready to be photographed. And of course, when you work with professional models, as I did, it's very easy. You offer them the condition and they know what they have to do. But with the street people, it's very different. It's very different.
Yeah.
So we take time, we just let them be themselves, and I capture that. So this is the idea.
Wow. So what's been your most interesting photography project that you've been doing so far?
The one I really appreciate was the one in the pagoda. So I was in Cambodia with my family, and I was discussing about maybe setting my studio inside the pagoda. And they said, yes, we can do that.
Oh,
I said, wow, very cool.
That's easy.
I was surprised to tell you the truth, but I said, okay, let's do it. So, of course, every year we go there for Jumen and to show respect to people. So we were there, and then they discussed with the monk in charge, and he said yes. When it will be over, for the last minute, you can set up your studio at the entrance of the pagoda, and the pagoda was full of people. So all my cousins, my aunt, and all my relatives helped me to find some people, and everyone was super excited to come and to join. Yeah, it was like a pleasure for them. So I got almost like 20% or maybe more in a very short time, like 30 to 40 minutes, and to capture that. So it was, I think, the most important project I did because I was with my relatives, working on a photographic project, paying respect to the people. This is where my grandmother is, and many of my ancestors stays in that pagoda, and the idea was to show them respect. So I still need to work on that series, and I will share it soon.
Wow. So you're saying, would you mind telling us a bit more about the meaning behind the project that you did in Dakota?
It's exactly the same idea, the same idea on the series on the riverside. Is to set up a studio where it's not supposed to be. In a pagoda, we don't see much people, so people like to photograph the background. So they need to see people in the pagoda, we see everything, but me, I just cut and push away the background to put something very natural, like a white one, gray one, and I take those people like they are, with no makeup, nothing, no props, they just come like they are, and I try to offer them a beautiful portrait. So it's also a way of documenting life.
Wow.
So daily life in Cambodia, but in a different setting. Yeah.
So it's all about like putting studio lights into the invisible, as you call it,
Exactly.
to the people on the street that are given the opportunity to do so.
Exactly. I will do the same thing with workers in the factory. I plan to do that in the market, in my street.
Yeah.
I have many ideas like that. So people are very happy to join most of the time.
Wow.
And that's very surprising because most of them, when they arrive, they ask me how much is it.
Yeah,
So you need to know something about me. I don't do anything related to money with photography. I'm lucky enough to have another activity that for me a very good life. And so for me, photography must be away from money. I don't need that money, so every time someone asks me to do some private shooting for money, I refuse that. So I prefer to keep it like a way of express myself. If I start a business with it, it will become something else.
Wow. And I remember one of the uniqueness I would say about you is also that the fact that you are colorblind. And tell us a bit more on if that become a barrier for you in doing photography or not. You know, how you see the world, how we see the world is different, but it's unique in both ways. How does it been affecting your photography when you're colorblind?
So since I'm very young, for me being colorblind is a curse.
It's a curse?
Yes, a kind of
negative.
Yes, something quite negative, and you feel like you have a disability, you don't see the world like the other, you feel bad about that. So being a photographer and not seeing the colors in the right way, you can imagine how difficult it is. So I never shared anything, I just took a picture for myself I never watched them, so I have boxes in France in my house full of camera roll that I never developed. So I've never seen them, I never checked them, it's just waiting for me somewhere. So as I told you, the result has never been something important for me. It was just being here and taking pictures. So, but being colorblind finally turned to be something positive for me in photography. I think one of the only one photographer and that only use color, black and white imagery, mostly. And finally, it helped many people to discover my work, because if you write on that page, you will see something in
consistent.
Yes, exactly, on it, right? So something that has been always difficult for me finally became something very positive at the end. So I'm very lucky. One more time.
Wow. So does that have that ever been been something that's difficult for you being colorblind?
Yes, seriously, it's very complex because you can't trust your eyes. So you always need to have your friends or people around you feedback. Example, if I go to buy some clothes, I'm not sure what I'm buying, maybe some surprise. I don't see any difference between purple and blue, to tell you the truth. So it's always, you feel dependent of the other. You feel that you need people to help you when it comes to color. If you need to paint a wall in your house, or I need to tell you something else. I was a street artist for years when I was younger. I was doing graffiti in Paris and almost all over the world also. And so I always use silver color and black. I never tried to put some colors in my graffiti. Every time I tried, the result was very special. So yeah, I don't see the world like you see it. I'm used to that. And it's something that's very interesting. In my family, it's very genetic. So if you go on my mother's side, all the boys are colorblind. Since forever, I think. And every time we have a new baby coming in the family, we are thinking, is this one like us? So my son is now only 4 years old, and I still waiting a bit more to be sure that he can see colors like you, or maybe like me. It will be probably like me. But it's fine, I'm used to it like that.
Walk us through a day, let's say how do you see the world being colorblind? Let's say when I see many different colors, and stuff like that. And would you see it differently? Would you see it in black and white, or how would you see it?
So I don't have the black and white color blindness. For me, it's more the shade of blue. I don't see them, and the shade of gray. And every time there is something with a lot of color mixing, I don't get it. Some kind of confusion in my brain and things. So I'm not a big fan of very powerful editing. I know that many, since we get in the digital area in photography, people just play with color a lot. And they try to, finally they ask the viewer to focus on this, or it's a kind of a way to direct people's eyes. So when I see that, since I don't see exactly the same, for me most of the time it's ugly. I really don't like this kind of imagery, but I understand that some people like it because they can see the colors. So I respect the fact that many people like it, but when it's too much, when people put a lot of colors everywhere, I lost very fast. So this is not something I'm a big fan of. Heavy editing. People spend more time on this than finding what they have to put in front of their camera. I think it's a big mistake. The most important for me finally is it's not the way you will edit your picture, but it's what is happening in front of your camera. So you were speaking about creativity. So for me, it's not thinking about what I will do with my camera, it's thinking about what will be in front of my camera. What will happen if I ask this kind of people, if I put this context for those people, and pressing a button and a random. Doing fancy editing also, but being able to create a context that something interesting will happen in front of you, and ask you to be aware. It's not a question of photography. You can use video, you can be a painter or whatever, but what is happening in front of you is very important. So it's not about their clothes, the background, the fancy light, the LED or anything that I can use during that time. I don't focus on colors, I just focus on light.
on
Is there enough light? Will I have some shade of gray? This is how I'm thinking my photography.
Got it. But for digital cameras, so you shoot it with color first, and then you change it to black and white, or
I use raw facts, so they are in color.
you need the color first,
Yes. And then I turn it into black and white.
into black and white.
But I started the first editing just a few months ago. I never, as I told you, I wasn't, none of my photography were supposed to be shared. So I never did any editing before. That was something that wasn't interesting for me. So I started when I did the Sarah series in the studio for the first time. I had to download my tool to understand how it was working, and I'm still in the learning process. So I just finished a masterclass about that yesterday.
Obviously
On one night, dramatic portraiture. I just finished something on
YouTube?
Yeah, I'm trying to learn that right now. And also editing, so yeah, everything for me is not about color. Maybe that makes me something as a different photographer, because I have no interest for that, just because I don't see it. But I'm trying to edit colors picture with the Instagram.
with Instagram,
But I'm not sure the result is good, so I will continue my black and white imagery for years.
Wow. And so it's really interesting how, despite with all it's a quote unquote disability, but still you're still able to show the beauty of the Cambodian people through the world with your black and white photos. And that's just something that I really inspired, that I also really look up to you. It's like so my photos is in black and white. It's also a big inspiration. You make big inspiration from yourself and so on too. So so I'm really thankful for you sharing your world of photography in black and white with us, and inspiring us young photographers. So
thanks to you, because when I first met you in April, you were the first one to contact me to speak about my work. You've been the first one in the world. So we had this very interesting conversation together about photography, why we are doing that, and how it can be useful for us. Finally, that's the same thing for you. And when I went back home, I said, "Wow, I'm connected with." I was telling you, my happiness is to be connected with people, and that was the beginning of something. Since I met you, I met hundreds of people after that, from models to people interested in photography. I have been lucky enough to make this exhibition at the house. So I met many people with different backgrounds, and all is about that. And the starting point was to meet you, and when you wrote this because I never used social media before. I'm a bit old school. I was thinking that it was the most dangerous thing in the world to be on social media.
and sometimes can be.
I think it is, and the addiction that goes with it is very dangerous for many young people. So this is something people need to be aware. But for me, it's a way of being connected with great people. So I hope I use it in a healthy way. I met many, so it's not just something virtual, it's not just something far from reality. For me, social media is being in the real world, meeting real people, like being with you right now. So
I remember we met back in April for the first time at Java Cafe with Nirwan. And I was like, the first time that I met you was like, hey, I saw you on Instagram, and I saw you, I'm a street photographer, you are a street photographer, but we both have, I have color, but you don't, but it still shows the beauty of all the Cambodian people with your pictures. And I was just really inspired. And then right after that, I just sent him a text, on Instagram, and I think the rest is history. the rest is it's all good things happening one after the other, one meeting new people every day. So
it has been a very important starting point for me. So I thank you for that. Because it was showing, I understood at that time that some people can be interested in what I'm trying to do. And thank you so much. I will never forget that ever.
Thank you so much. I've been really blessed with photography too so far. And then talking about showing photography to the world with, with the Cambodian people. How do you think, in your opinion, how do you think the world see Cambodia from a third-person perspective? How do they see Cambodia, and how does that relate to your photography?
So something I noticed, because I'm lucky enough to travel, Cambodia is seen like a late country. But when I say late, it's late in many areas, like artistic way, thinking, cinematic production, music production. People are thinking that we are behind compared to Thailand or Vietnam. It's completely not true, in my opinion. It's everything is young. We already
Young will be better.
Yes, clearly. And so we have everything ready to show the world how we are confident, competent, and smart. So my photography is about that, showing the modernity of Cambodia, showing them how beautiful we are, but we have a lot of ideas and everything is blooming in Cambodia right now. So I have a lot of feedback from people from all over the world, and it's always very good. So it means that we have everything is ready to show the world how strong, powerful, and beautiful our culture is. So this is something I want to work on. Showing the world this amazing culture. Everything is not perfect, but that's true everywhere in the world. Same for the French culture, American one, Chinese one. So the Cambodian one, and it's a very young country. There is a lot of energy everywhere in Cambodia. People want to succeed, people want to create, and I want to be the one who will capture that. Many photographers, if you take their picture, Cambodian photographer, you won't be able to know if it's in Cambodia or not. There's nothing that shows that. Their picture, they can be from London or wherever in the world. We don't see Cambodia. In my imagery, you will see Cambodia everywhere. You will notice that you are in Cambodia. I try to work on very iconic things like the grammar. I want to make pictures easy to read for everyone, from the street people to anyone in the world. So this is one of the things I'm focusing on, to make some very easy pictures to read, to understand. There's no ID message, there's no complex things to understand. You just watch this, you say, wow, they are beautiful in Cambodia. I hope so.
Wow, so it's all about making things more recognizable, easier for people to spot that, oh, this Kamasi means the Ultra project, but it's all Cambodia. So
you notice that people are addicted to their social media in Cambodia, and I want to make pictures for everyone. For a guy who is living in the rice field, far in the countryside, he can understand my picture. You won't be lost. Oh, this is a grandma, oh, this is a guy or woman. I want people to understand that this photography is for everyone. I'm almost polarizing the Cambodian photography. I want to make something for everyone, not just for a small community that are used to check art or photography. So it must be obvious for everyone, okay, this guy is in Cambodia, it's easy to identify this, and oh, we are beautiful.
wow.
I don't need anything else.
Wow.
It's a very simple way of doing photography.
It's like showing the little things in Cambodia with really easy recognized things like the after, and once you see it, you know it's right away. It's Cambodia.
It's Cambodia and nowhere else in the world. We have everything ready to show the world how beautiful we are.
Wow. And so far, you have just name a few projects that you have made. So you have the plastic series, you have the Gaman series, you have the abstract project, you have the Little Job series, you have exhibition in the house. So that's the past project. So what's in the future? What projects are you planning to have in the future?
So I want to continue the plastic series. The series came from Marita. So she was thinking that there is too many plastics everywhere in the country, and she had this idea that we should do something around that. So I started that with her ideas first. And now I'm working on something different. I want to work on body positivism, so I'm connected with Pillow. And we are working on it, so that's the next shooting which is coming soon, and with Miguel Geronimo. We are thinking about doing something for the language sign.
Yeah,
So deaf people, yeah, so I'm working on these two. So those two projects are about to be done. But I continue my drama series. This one I will continue it until the end of my life, I guess.
Wow.
Because it's a very simple one and I met so many amazing models. It can be anyone. So, and I will continue to bring my studio in places where it's not supposed to be.
Where you're not supposed to be.
Exactly.
That's the point, right?
So yes, I will continue. So I'm improving the way of having a nice background because the one I'm using now, there is wind, it's falling down. So I'm working on technical issue right now. So and it's, I think tomorrow I can discover a new photographer, checking his work and having a new inspiration because I'm in the learning process of the time. So it's very new for me to share photography, to work on them, to have people's feedback. So every day I'm learning from those feedback, I'm learning from people who knows better than me. I'm an eternal learner.
Wow.
I need to learn every day something new.
If let's say you're now 42 years old, and let's say if you were to go back when you are like 18 or 20 years old now, with the knowledge that you have right now, what would be something that you would do different? And what would be some tips and advice that you give to young rising artists or people that also want to follow your footsteps? You know, what would be like a tip that you would give to them?
So first I will change nothing to what I've done before.
Yeah.
Even if I know more today, I guess that we have to live our life and we need to get those experience. So for me it was about traveling first. If I have to give one advice to young people, go and see what is happening in the world.
Go
everywhere you can. So if it's just a village next to your village, go start with that. Go and see what is happening in the next village and then in the city after that. And if you are lucky enough, you will be able to see what is happening all around the world. There's nothing best for the young than to be able to compare, to have something to give perspective to their own culture. You learn a lot. I don't know how you live when you arrived in the US for the first time.
Yeah.
It was something for you that bring you something more?
For sure.
So
For sure.
everything is all about that. So in France we have something when we are very young, I don't know you call that in English, but it's summer camp. Even if you are not very rich, the city pays you holidays abroad. And I did that when I was young.
Also like a summer trip then, like a
Probably something like that.
like a summer vacation. No?
It's vacation, so every year in summertime you have 2 weeks and the city pays you that. So I went and I started to travel like that.
Oh, they pay. Oh,
They give you money, you have a group of young people together and you can organize your trip in different countries.
wow.
And it was a blessing when I was young because I was seriously addicted to discover those countries and their culture and the way they think and a bit of their language, their food, everything that goes with it.
Yeah.
So first tip, if you can, go and see what is happening a bit far away from what you are used to. Go outside of your comfort zone as much as you can. Be eager to learn.
Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one.
I'm a teacher, so of course
Yeah.
I will say that. I really think we should all of us be in a learning process all the time.
Yeah.
They don't get stuck in one thing. You start something, go deep, and then you feel you can start to master something, try to start something, to learn something else. And at the time, most of the young people, they will find we are all gifted for something.
You believe in like talents, like hidden talents.
You need to find your talents. But
How can we find that here? So,
experiences
wow.
and curiosity, and not to be afraid of failing. You know, we all fail every day. When I watch my photo and I see how you can check on my profile and you will see how I improve my skills. Even in a short time, it's obvious. I think when I say that you can see how things are going on. It's about what I learned. I took time, I buy books, I took masterclass, I met a photographer, I observing what they are doing. So most of the young people, they need to be aware that they need to learn, they need to check, and your generation is lucky enough to have internet for that. Before it was more complex. If you don't go to the library and buy a book, or if you didn't meet the right person, it was difficult to learn something like that alone in the middle of nowhere. But now you can access to information everywhere, right away, and it's free most of the time. So don't be scared of investing in your knowledge and also your travel. There's two things that are very important for people, in my point of view, is to be able to meet people who are not like you, and being open-minded enough to listen to them and to learn something from them. And in another way, never stop learning. If something interests you, learn. But when I say learning, it's taking time for that. Dedicate yourself to your learning. Take time every day. I remember when I started to play guitar, it took me like 1 hour and a half per day for 6 years of training every day. You need to be consistent when you want to master something. You can't be just trying a bit and go away and going back to that. No, it's something you need to schedule how you will learn. So for many young people, it's difficult to anticipate that, but there is a lot of technique to be organized and to dedicate some time to something that you love. So, you like photography? Check what the people before you did. You will find a lot of inspiration. If you go to the French Institute, we have a beautiful shelter with a lot of, most of those books are in French, but the picture is a picture and you can get the message. Yeah. So go there, check that, learn from the guys before yourself, and you will try to improve what they did before. So learning, traveling, I think it's 2 tips, and being open-minded, of course.
So if I summarize it the right way, your 3 tips for youth and for teenagers who are seeking for purposes and finding their passion is traveling, being open-minded, and always learning. Right?
Exactly.
It's always learning.
And follow your dream. Maybe it looks obvious, but if you feel that you're really happy doing this kind of thing, just try your best to succeed. You will fail many times. You will suffer, many people will say bad things and will try to find a way to block you and to live your dream, but believe me, if you try hard again and again, something happens. And never forget, especially the young man, the purpose of all those things is to be happy. To feel good in the morning when you wake up, and that you have something to do that you love. So if people can find something that they love to do, life will become super easy.
Wow. Well, let's say, how about if let's say if I'm not sure your kids are into art or photography like you do right now, but what if they do decide to do a different thing? How would you respond to that?
I will always follow their purpose in life. So, for example, my daughter, she's already in photography. I got her a small Nikon and she loves to photograph. She has a lot of behind the scene of all my work. It's quite amazing to see her taking pictures when he was shooting. I'm the kind of guy who did many different things in his life. I was living in South America in the jungle for 6 years. I was a teacher for a military camp. I was a dancehall teacher. I did some show with my guitar. What I did, I'm also a fighter. I did some Khmer Rouge for years. No, we are not only one person. Wow. We have a variety of profile and experience, and all those things are. I really hope they will be happy, and I will support everything they want to try. And that's very important, I think. So as a dad, I just need to let them try everything they need to try, as much as I can.
And whatever they come, you fully support.
Whatever they decide, I will be with them.
Wow, it's really intriguing to me how that you mentioned that you went from like a guitar to a fighter to photographer to a teacher. Wow, so it's like with that knowledge you can really become open-minded to your son and daughter as well. So that's
a good question. You know, when my daughter was born, so she was just born since 1 minute. She learned her height, and I was the first person she saw. And I understood something right away at that moment, exactly at that moment, I will never forget that. All the things I experienced before in my life, the bad and the good one, was to help her now. It was to bring her something. Everything I lived before was for her, to help her to discover the world. One more advice for the young people: listen to your elders. Speak with your grandparents. Talk with your parents. It's not always easy in a traditional education, but as much as you can learn from them, you won't make the same mistake. So all the mistakes I've done before, I'm almost sure that my daughter will not make the same because I got this experience and I will bring her like that. So she will be a better me.
Whoa.
And she's already. And she's only 7 years old.
7 years old?
Yes.
And wow, she's in what grade right now?
She's in grade 3.
Grade 3. Whoa. So it's all like listening to elders, respecting one another, open-minded, traveling. Wow.
That's something you understand when your elder dies. When they die, many people understand at that moment that it's too late now to get something from them.
Right.
So enjoy them, document their life. Elders like to speak. Elders like to give new generation their experience. It's very helpful, and especially in Cambodia. Our elders in Cambodia have very heavy history and things to give us. So take time, speak. Yes, that's very important. It helps a lot not to make the same mistake. But that's also true for a book. There's some book that I read when I was younger and helped me a lot because it was the experience of someone during his whole life. And me, it took me only 6 hours to get all this from those people, and I feel very lucky. You don't make the same mistake most of the time when someone shares that they did before.
Wow. So all this like summed up to like listening to elders, being open-minded, going travel, go outside your comfort zone. Those are like the core to being like a successful youth, I would say.
Don't be afraid also to fight, because some people will try to oppress you.
Yeah.
That's very important, and don't be afraid to speak about. Okay, it will be difficult on the moment, but by the end you will feel good because you have expressed yourself also. So when you are stuck or someone wants that thing for you, don't be afraid to fight. It's also a part of happiness.
Wow.
But that's very French. We like to fight.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're coming a bit close to the end of the podcast. But before we do, I'll have a OV talk card. So I'll give you a 5 questions card, and then you can answer any short sentences or short quicks based on the questions that we have.
Okay, let's try.
You choose 5 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Alright, so the first question that we have is, what is the one thing you would like to change about yourself?
That's a tough one, right? That's easy. I would like to stop smoking cigarettes. I think I smoke too much.
So,
I'm a silent smoker, so if there is one thing sometimes I stop, I quit for 1 year, but I'm always back to it. I love smoking cigarettes. It's not very positive message, but there is something I would like to change in this one.
Wow, that's a good one. Alright, so here's the next one. If you could be competing in the Olympics, what sport would you choose?
Probably boxing.
Boxing. That's when you go back to your boxing.
That's funny because that night I was training, I was on the ring fighting with someone, so that's something I really like. Martial art helped me a lot when I was younger. Yeah, to bring me focus, discipline, and self-confidence. So my daughter, she's very young, she's already doing jiu-jitsu, same for my son. Yeah, I think everyone, and especially ladies and girls, really need to be ready. We live in a violent world. That's obvious, I think. Maybe not so much in Cambodia, but in fact also. So you need to be ready to defend yourself. So yep, there's something around martial art for me. It taught me a lot when I was younger.
That was when you were at what age you get into?
Oh, I started very young, I think like 8 to 9 years old.
Boxing. It's always
So,
is it like a hobby or something?
Like Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, I tried many different aspects of martial arts. You know, this is also what I was saying. I never get stuck in one thing. It's good to become excellent and just to do the same activity all your life. I always take that, but this is not my personality. So most of the time, around 4 years in the sport, I think I start to have a good basis, so I can improve with bringing something else. In martial arts, you really need to understand that some sports are more efficient for kicking, others for punching, others for protect yourself. So I try to go in different ways. But I travel a lot, so every time I also check what is around.
Yeah.
It's different from the restaurant.
Wow, that's powerful. Alright, the third question is, if you could instill one piece of advice in a newborn baby, what advice would you give? That's a big one. That's similar to what we talked about. There's a big one.
If I have to give an advice to a baby,
To a newborn, yeah, you can speak to their mind.
I will tell you, stay next to your parents. Stay close to your parents as much as you can. They will protect you, they will bring you love, they will give you a safe environment to grow up. Stay next to your parents as much as you can. I hope my kids will stay next to me. In fact, my education is to give them the keys to be free. So, when you're a baby, stay next to your parents. When you grow up a bit, start to explore the world with what they give to you.
But still love you.
Of course, everything is around that.
Alright, so this is the fourth question. It's a short one. Are you happy with yourself right now?
I'm super happy.
With your life?
Yeah, I'm very good. I really feel like I'm a lucky guy and I have a very simple life and this helped me to be happy, I guess. So I do my photo, I also have my teaching occupation and everything fits together. I'm busy and I like it. So yes, I think I'm very happy. And that's just the beginning.
Wow, I love that. Alright, here's the last question. What if there's one role that you would create and everyone in the world would live by? What is that one rule?
One what?
One rule.
Rule.
Yeah. Like everyone in the world must follow that rule. Do you get the question? That's it.
I understand the question, so that I'm not a big fan of rules.
Yeah, you're not good. Yeah.
This is French also, I guess. Throw your big ones away. If I have one rule or one law that would be super helpful, it's no more weapon in the world.
No more weapons in the world.
Yeah, I hate weapons, to tell you the truth. So, I don't know if I already answered your question.
I think that is an answer. One will be no weapons, all peaceful.
Yeah, because I think all those objects that humans create to kill, we shouldn't allow that anymore.
Okay. So we're all living in like a peaceful world.
It would be easier with 5 people.
Five people. Oh, I see that. Well, I think we come down to the last questions already. And I just want, once again, I'm really, really thankful for you taking your time having this podcast with me. It's been a really pleasure. You've been a really big inspiration to me. I'm really, really thankful. And so, what will be your last words for people out there? How can they connect with you?
Photography is accessible. Don't be scared if you are not technical. You don't need to have a fancy camera. You don't need to have all those amazing skills. If you really like it, you will learn. You will learn. Try, shoot, meet some people, continue to shoot. Never stop that. I think if we speak just about photography, it's about dedication, love for it. So don't get stuck with what people will think about your work. Don't wait anyone to explain you if it's good or not. Do your things. learn a lot, and you will have fun with photography, and it will allow you to meet amazing people like many photographers that I met in the city, and I feel it's a blessing. So thanks to you, brother. So it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. And for everyone who wants to keep in touch with Raphael, his Instagram is Cambodia_streetwise. It's CAMBODIA_STREETWISE. Is there any other way that we can connect with you, or Instagram would be the best way?
Instagram will be the best way, I think. I'm building a website right now, so I go slow.
One step at a time.
Exactly.
So it seems like great things gonna happen soon, and it comes to the end of the podcast. I'm Hal. This is Raphael. Thank you for listening to the second episode of the Youth Family Podcast. Signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.